Alright, so you decided you wanted to start learning a new language. And now you're doing all of your research because you want to know what is the best way to do it, right? Maybe you went on Google, maybe you went on YouTube, hell, maybe you even checked out Internet Explorer. And it seems like the consensus is pretty clear now that everybody pretty much agrees immersion is the number one most effective method in order to learn a language. But is it the only way? Because a lot of the people that preach immersion also aren't really the biggest fans of apps, and they seem to be getting a lot of hate now, especially from a lot of YouTubers. A lot of the YouTube community does not think they are very useful, especially, God forbid, Duolingo, right? Now, there may be merits to every single one of these apps, and I'm one of the people that believes that maybe blending some of the apps in with your immersion learning is a very effective method in order to really fast track your language learning journey. So now let's talk about what my 4 or 5 favorite apps are and why that is the case. Alright, so before we get on to the video, if you do hear my baby in the background, I am in my room, he's awake, so you might hear him laughing or crying a little bit, but hopefully that doesn't bother you too much. Hopefully he's not too loud. We're gonna get through this one pretty quick. It's just about my top 5 favorite apps that I like to use in order to enhance my immersion, right? So number 1, I want to start off with Migaku. Alright, so my number 1 reason for liking Migaku is for the Anki-like deck system that it has. Anything that you want, like an article that you want to screenshot, or maybe some song lyrics that you want to screenshot, and you can actually post them on the clipboard in Migaku, and it'll parse everything that's in the screenshot, and then you can create individual cards out of it. You can create separate decks for anything. I think I have some song lyric decks that I have in my app. I have some video game vocab that I wanna learn because I like to play those games. So you can basically create flashcards out of everything. And the other reason why I think this is superior to Anki in that aspect is because the card creation system, it is very beginner friendly. It is very easy to use. Like I said, my baby's gonna be here, so he's gonna be a little bit noisy, but I hope you can bear with me. With Anki, the card creation, it can be a little bit wonky. I don't personally like it. I don't create any cards on Anki. I don't feel the need to because I have Migaku now. So all I do is I download the Core 2K deck and the Core 2K 6K optimized deck on Anki, and the rest of the cards that I personally want to create, I use Migaku for it. Another thing is, if you really want to still use Anki and import all of your cards from Migaku over to Anki, that is very easy to do. You can find a lot of tutorials for it on YouTube, the same way I did. It takes you maybe 30 seconds to set up, 30 seconds to a minute. It's very quick, very easy. And if you want to have all your cards, all of your decks, integrated into one singular app, and you want to make that Anki, for whatever the reason may be, it is very easy to do. So that you're not going to struggle doing that either. Last and not least, the best thing about Migaku is that it is absolutely affordable to most people, I want to say, right? I know everybody's financial situation is a little bit different. Migaku, for me, at least at the moment that I signed up for it, about 2 months ago, it was $4.99 a month. It is also a spaced repetition system that works very similar to Anki, but I think it is just a little bit better. So for the $4.99 a month, I absolutely recommend Migaku. And for anybody that is looking to an alternative to Anki and is willing to spend the $5 a month, I absolutely recommend it. It's got my go ahead. Now, for my second favorite app, in order to learn a language that is absolutely free, and everybody knows this one, I just talked about it in number 1, is going to be Anki. Now, if anybody has ever looked into learning a language or started learning a language, then you're absolutely going to know about Anki, and it is absolutely an amazing resource. It is free. It is easy to set up. The only problem I had setting it up on was iOS. I don't know if you can. I'm sure there might be a way. I'm sure somebody figured it out already. But what I like to do is just go to the App Store, and if it's there, I like to download it, which is very convenient if you have an Android, because there is Anki Droid, which works just the same way as it does on desktop as far as I know. Anki, it has a lot of benefits to it, so you don't really have to create any of your own cards if you don't want to. But there is a really cool feature on Anki where you can browse any kind of deck that you want. So obviously, depending on your target language, if it is a more popular language, it's going to have a lot more decks from people that have created it before, right? So you're going to have a list of hundreds, if not thousands of decks. You're most likely going to find anything that you need on the browse list. But Anki, there's not too much to say about it. It's pretty straightforward. It's a spaced repetition card system, so Works just like any other flashcard system does, except it is probably the most popular, and that may be for a reason. All right, so moving on to app number 3, they are going to be Pimsleur and italki. Now, the reason I am grouping these two together is because they are both, in my opinion, just basically conversational practice. So if you don't want to learn how to speak the language that you're trying to learn for whatever reason, then you can basically disregard these. Or if you don't want to pay too much for any of these apps that I'm showing you today, then you're probably definitely going to want to stay away from these, because that is the one negative that I will say is any app that, it seems to me at least from any app that I've researched and any app that I've found, any app that teaches you how to have a conversation and then actually puts you to the test with your conversational skills, it's going to be a little bit on the higher end of pricing. So Pimsleur, for example, if you want to make it a one-time purchase, it's going to run you for, depending on the language, I think it changes a little bit, but anywhere from $400 to $600. One-time purchase, you get all of the levels, and it'll give you between 4 to 6 months worth of conversation practice, which I think is great. It is very expensive, and I do have it, but I don't have the one-time purchase. I pay for it on a month-by-month basis. Even then, it can get pretty expensive. Some of the stuff that you will learn on Pimsleur is kind of outdated, which is why I personally, if you don't mind spending the extra money and you have the resources available to you, I would go with something like italki. Now, the reason I personally love italki, even though I haven't used it for Japanese yet, while I was learning Vietnamese, it is a resource that I used maybe once or twice a week. I would have scheduled 1-hour classes with my native Vietnamese teacher, and she would give me personalized homework at the end of every lesson. And basically it was just a bunch of listening practice and kind of trying to make up my own conversation with what the audio was telling me. And when we would hop on it for an hour, she would give me some of the most common words, and we would practice putting that into a conversation. italki is just a very interactive, very personalized one-on-one, you and a teacher. They do offer some trial lessons, so your first lesson will kind of just be a 30-minute assessment between you and a teacher, and it'll basically be just that, an assessment. They'll kind of gauge what your level is. They'll personalize your plan for you, tell you about their plans for you going into the near future. So I really think italki is a good resource, but it can get very expensive depending on how many lessons and what your target language is. It can be expensive. So for me, for example, when I was learning Vietnamese, a 1-hour class would cost me about $12. So I would do that twice a week, $24 a week. You could do the math, $80-$90 a month, I believe it was. I'm horrible at math, so maybe I just got that completely wrong. But the reason I think it is such a good resource is because it is very personalized. Something that another app that just kind of walks you through its own pathing is not going to be able to do. It can't replicate personalized teachings to you. Probably if I had to pick between the two, I would pick italki because I prefer the personalized lessons over the Pimsleur course, but Pimsleur is absolutely worth the money if you're willing to spend it. All right, and now for the 5th and final app of this list. It's the one that we are all currently using right now to watch this video, and the one that I uploaded this video to, and that is YouTube. Now, why do I love YouTube? Well, for language learning in particular, I think it is going to be an absolutely amazing app because you have thousands and thousands of hours worth of content, probably in your target language. Depending on how niche your language is, you're probably most likely going to find a whole bunch of content in your target language that is just free for you to watch. You don't got to pay for YouTube Premium if you don't want to. If you don't mind dealing with the ads, you could absolutely just watch it on the free version. The ads aren't all that bad if you're willing to put up with them. Now, it is free. It is hundreds, if not thousands of hours worth of content for you to just dive into. And if there is something that you enjoy, whatever kind of niche you like, whatever hobbies you have, whatever you're into, you're probably going to find content dedicated just to that in that target language of yours. One of my favorite things about learning a language with YouTube is the fact that it is very compatible with Migaku. If you find a video that has subtitles in your target language, what Migaku would do is it can parse all of the subtitles and it creates a list for you, and it'll give you every single word that's in the video off to the side, and you can choose whether you just want to see the dictionary of it. If you hover over it, and I believe you click control, or I can't remember what key, but it'll give you the dictionary definition of that word. And if you want to create a card from that word, it's also very simple. I think you just hit the W key and it'll give you some options. So you can personalize your own card whichever way you want it to be, and it'll instantly just kick that card to Anki. So that is one of my favorite things about using YouTube, is you can use Migaku very well with it, and they just mesh together perfectly. I don't want to make this video too long. I just kind of wanted to talk about my top 5 list for my favorite apps, because it seems like the YouTube community is kind of split on this, and now everybody just wants to preach immersion, and it seems like everybody just disregarded the apps, and I think they're a good tool. I think they'll really enhance your immersion. Now I'm gonna add a clip at the end of this video so you can see something else that I do in order to retain that information a little bit more. Now, I understand that this clip has nothing to do with language learning in particular, but it is from a YouTuber that I really enjoy watching, and his name is Dr. K, and his channel, I believe, is called Healthy Gamer GG. So what he is he's a psychologist, and he talks about his life story of how he was failing out of school, and he failed college, and well, he went through his journey. If you're interested, just go to his channel, make sure to check it out. But I really found it interesting because I think you could also apply this to language learning, and it is an interesting technique where, well, you know what? I'm just gonna let him explain it.
The first is don't chain watch informational content or motivational videos. So when you chain watch something, nothing ever gets put into long-term memory because you have a certain amount of RAM. And whenever you have like a certain amount of RAM, what starts happening is stuff starts getting overwritten. You have only a certain amount of RAM. And if you really want to learn your lesson, you can't like keep learning new stuff. You have to like give it time to sink in. So don't chain watch informational videos or motivational videos or whatever. The more you replace your RAM, the less you're going to learn. So it's actually watch less stuff. Like you don't have to do anything, but just, so if you watch something that you really think, oh wow, this could actually help me a lot, pause. Don't keep watching stuff. Okay? So don't chain watch, don't overwrite your RAM. Second thing you've got to do is reflect. It's not a damn thing. It's not doing a damn thing. Reflect. What does that mean? We're going to mirror this process of, okay, I can read the textbook for 10 hours, or I can read the textbook and I can do practice questions. What is the equivalent of practice questions for changing? It's actually just reflection. So instead of chain watching videos, what you're going to do is watch one video and you're going to go sit somewhere. And you're not going to distract your mind with anything else, and you're going to reflect on what you watched. The more that you recall that information out of your mind, the more it solidifies into learning, and the more that change happens.
All right, so the reason I wanted to add that last clip at the very end of Dr. K is because I think you could really apply that to language learning. Even though he's talking about psychology and making psychological change, he also references that same scenario when it comes to his method of studying for getting into university, into medical school. And I started applying it a lot more to my own language practice, and I found that I really started retaining a lot more of the information. So the way I apply that essentially is after I am done with Anki, which usually takes me between 45 minutes to an hour and a half, depending on how many reviews I have. What I like to do is I like to sit down for 5 to 10 minutes, and I just kind of either lay down or I sit down here in the chair, and I just close my eyes and I try to recall as many words as possible without being on my phone, without listening to anything on my headphones. I just kind of like to sit in the quiet and try to recall everything. And what I've been noticing is there's a drastic increase in the amount of words that I am able to recall the day after. Whenever I go back to Anki or whenever I go back to the Migaku decks, I notice that my reviews are usually a lot smoother because, I don't know, something about that just kind of makes everything stick a little bit more. So if you're interested in applying that, I would definitely recommend it because I think it's helped me out tremendously in my recollection of Anki cards. But anyways, guys, I hope everybody enjoyed the video, and sorry it took me so long to upload this one, but I will be a lot more consistent on it. I'm actually considering making a second channel, so stay tuned for that. And yeah, I just noticed I'm going to be wearing a different shirt for this last clip of the video, so hopefully the change of clothes doesn't jump scare you too much. But anyways, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.